So today we're going to talk about how globalization has contributed to the inequality gap. So what are the key findings of this research?
Well, the first thing to be said about globalization is that it's been a powerful force for improving prosperity around the world. Thailand is an example of a country which has gained a lot from globalization. China, 30 years ago, was a poor country, and now it has the second biggest economy in the world, and this is largely because of globalization. So there's no doubt that, on average, globalization has been a very good thing for just about every country in the world, at least countries which have participated in the globalization process. Not all have. But within a country, the benefits of globalization have been quite unequally distributed. In particular, workers who have skills that are needed by global markets have had many good opportunities for new jobs, higher income, and they've been able to get these opportunities without even having to move, because we live in such a highly connected world. You can work in Thailand for a company based on the other side of the world. You don't actually have to leave Thailand. So for workers who have skills that are demanded by global markets, globalization has been a great thing. But there are many people who don't have skills that are demanded by global markets, and I'm thinking especially of people who are in traditional industries like agriculture, subsistence agriculture. Those people have been almost totally unaffected by globalization. So it's not as though they're worse off than they used to be before, but their counterparts with skills are doing better than before. And so the gap between the skilled workers and the unskilled workers has grown. That is the source of inequality, the fact that globalization creates opportunities for some people, but not all people.
When we talk about globalization, we often think about bridging the economies, digitalization, and bridging the entire community together. But the problem is that it has increased the level of inequality in some economies as well. Is there a specific region that is the biggest concern?
You know, increasing inequality has been a problem almost everywhere in the world. It's true in the United States, it's true in Europe, it's true in South America, it's true in Asia. Thailand, I'm afraid, has one of the biggest inequality gaps in the world, although actually I've been pleased to see that the gap has been actually falling a bit in recent years, which is a good thing. So I think the short answer to your question is no. Inequality is a concern almost everywhere, but I should explain why it's such a concern. It's not just that inequality is a problem in itself. Of course, we don't like the idea of large gaps between different people, but even if we didn't care about those gaps, inequality would still be a problem because it tends to make countries less stable. There's a well-known correlation between a country's political stability and social stability and its levels of equality. Countries with very high inequality or inequality that's growing show a tendency to destabilize. I have to say that even in my own country, the United States, which has historically been thought of as a very stable country, growing inequality has put its political stability in greater doubt. The last 8 years or so have been ones where we have seen the possibility of authoritarianism, which was unthinkable in the United States for hundreds of years, becoming a real possibility. I still think that we're going to resist authoritarianism, but it's not a sure thing anymore. And income inequality, growing income inequality, has had a lot to do with that threat.
So you're basically saying that inequality happens pretty much everywhere, even in the United States.
Yes.
And when we talk about globalization, when we're supposed to bridge the gap between those who are privileged and underprivileged, what is actually missing in this process?
What's missing is opportunity for unskilled workers. They don't have the same job prospects that people with good skills have. And that means that the way of solving the problem is to ensure that workers without skills get some skills so that they can enjoy the benefits of globalization as well. So that means job training, education, where the job training and education is focused on jobs that are likely to prosper in the global economy. The difficulty with providing that job training and education, though, is that it's expensive. Somebody has to pay for it, and the question is, who's going to pay for it? Now, the unskilled workers themselves can't afford to pay for it. They're too poor. So they can't be expected to pay for their own education and their own job training. You might hope that potential employers of these workers would pay for the job training. If I'm an unskilled worker and you're a potential employer, you could train me to do a job in your company, but that would be an investment on your part. And the problem is that once you've made that investment, once you've trained me, I don't necessarily have to work for you. I could go to work for your competitor, and then your investment in me is lost.
Right.
So employers often don't have the incentive to make an investment in unskilled workers because that investment is not very secure. They might lose their investment to their competitor. So the workers won't pay for it. The employers won't pay for it. The employers the employers could pay for it. The workers can't afford to pay for it. So who's going to pay for it? Well, the obvious third party to pay for it is the government. The government should figure out a way of allowing unskilled workers to get the job training they need. Now, that's where my field of mechanism design comes in. Mechanism design is the study of how to give people, organizations, governments the incentive to do what is in the public interest. And in this case, governments can give employers the incentive to train workers by, for example, giving them a tax break or giving them a subsidy. So the problem is solvable, but it takes some serious action on the part of government to solve the problem. The problem does not solve itself. We have to take action in order to ensure that the problem is attended to.
It seems like many countries do use a lot of technology in terms of trying to upskill the unskilled workers. Do you think it's on the right track?
So you're right. There are many countries around the world which have made use of technology to help train workers, and that's made a difference. In Thailand, for example, a generation ago or so, I think something on the order of 50% of the population was below the poverty line, and now that fraction is down to less than 10%, and this is mainly due to the fact that so many people now have the skills they need to earn a decent living. But greater investment by government is needed. We still have a lot of inequality, and in many places inequality is growing, which suggests that although government has made an investment, there is even more investment. There is even more investment that is needed. I was happy to see that under the current U.S. administration, the Biden administration, a law was passed about a year ago, which provided money for what we call community colleges. These are colleges which are not focused so much on academic training, but on giving students practical skills like being a plumber or being an electrician or being a computer programmer. These are all skills which are very much in demand, which will earn them a good living, but which the students might not be able to afford to acquire these skills on their own. So the fact that the government is contributing to their education is important in the fight against inequality. I think in general the most important investments that a government can make is in people, is in what we economists call human capital, in education, in skills. The countries which make the biggest investments in that direction tend to be the countries which do the best economically and also socially.
Well, looking back at Thailand, you just mentioned the issue of education, but we would also like to reflect one side of it, is that Thai education, there's a lot of inequality in here because some communities don't have access to quality education, and that means they don't have opportunities compared to those who attended very good schools, international schools. So the opportunities will be different because of the education they receive. So
That's right.
What would be your advice to the Thai government so that they can actually reduce the inequality gap and also improve the quality of education so that all children can have access to education equally?
Well, this can be done in different ways. I think the most straightforward solution for government is some degree of redistribution. That is, if you have two communities, one wealthy and one which is able to provide good education, and another community which is poor and is not providing very good education, you use the tax structure, the tax system, to tax the rich and give some of that money to the poor for the purpose of developing their educational system. That's something that's a strategy which has worked quite well in many countries around the world, and I'm not an expert on Thailand by any means, but I imagine that it could work here too.
One last question. What would be the best way to reduce the inequality gap in the world of globalization? And what would be your advice to the Thai government?
The general solution to inequality is improving skills. Governments can improve skills in several different ways. One way is to give employers the incentive to train workers, and government can do this by giving tax breaks to companies or giving companies bonuses or subsidies dependent on training workers. But the other thing that government can do is to support institutions like community colleges, which do the training and allow mature workers to stay in the workforce but learn new skills so that they can move to even better jobs. And the important thing about these investments by government, and the reason why it should be possible for government to convince the population that it's a good thing, is that these investments pay off. When you have a better skilled labor force, you have more wealth. And some of this wealth can be used to pay back the investment that was made in the first place. So everyone gains from the investments. The investment makes sense from everybody's point of view.
All right, thank you so much for today.
ขอบคุณมาก
You're
ค่ะ
welcome.